everyone, this is Gina. Today I'm going to show you how to make this really pretty column bead bracelet. Now I have several column beads on my website in color mixes and different colors because I know it might be difficult for some of you to find these beads. And if you cannot find them, you can use anything basically this shape and basically this size. I have two sizes of column beads on my website, but both sizes will work. You'll just have to adjust your length a little bit according to which size you pick. And we'll discuss that in the next segment. But this is what this looks like. Let's get really close here and I'll show you. This turns out just so pretty. Of course, it's got the oils from my hands on it. It would be even sparklier. But I'm using little 3x2 crystal stations and then the column beads, and it's a little bit more advanced design, but as long as you're familiar with right angle weave, you should be okay with this. If you're not familiar with right angle weave, do a couple simpler tutorials with that until you understand the process, and that will help. Otherwise, if you're a very beginner and you want to try it anyway, just follow along and you should be able to do it as long as you take it slow. So this is what this looks like, and let's go ahead and look at the material list and get started on this project. Okay, for this tutorial today, we are going to be using some seed beads. These are all Toho, and we're going to be using an 8/0 and a 15/0 and 11/0s. So the 8/0 and the 15/0 are hematite, and the 11/0 is galvanized permanent finish aluminum. We're going to be using some 3x2 crystals, and mine is a powder blue. Then we're going to be using some column beads. These are 6.5 by 4 millimeter. Now you can use anything similar in size. I have a little shorter one on my website also, plus I have this size in several different colors if you need some. But you can use anything you have in your stash that is a column bead shape, and you can get away with most any size as long as they're not really wide. But the length of them, you can use most any length that you would like. So then we're going to need a toggle clasp. I'm using this gunmetal color toggle clasp. And then I'm going to be using some Fireline 6-pound in the smoke color because I'm using pretty dark beads. So I'm going to use the black thread here. And a size 12 beading needle. Now you're going to want to put onto your beading needle to start this project about 4.5 to 5 feet of thread. You will need to extend your Fireline during this project. There will be a video posted in the description box beneath the video player, a link so that you can learn how to do that if you do not know how. So go ahead and gather your things together and let's get started. Okay, to start this project, we are going to pick up a column bead and then an 8/0 seed bead and a column bead and an 8/0 seed bead. Just like this. I'm going to bring this down a little so you can see what I'm doing, and I'm going to draw these beads down to the end of my thread. You don't have to leave a long tail, but leave a few inches to tie a knot with, and then go back up through the first column bead on your thread on the tail side. Hold on to your tail, hold on to that column bead, and pull your thread all the way through until the two beads lay on top of each other, just like this. Let me readjust my camera just a little bit here. And then we're going to sew back through these beads. So we're coming out of this column bead right here. We are going to go up into this 8/0 seed bead here. And then into the column bead. And then into the 8/0 on this side. Now, our threads, our working thread and our tail thread are basically in the same spot. So we're going to cross the working thread over the tail thread and bring the tail through the loop that results twice. And then pull a knot down, just like this. Now, we are going to go into, we're right here where the knot comes out, so we're going to go into this 8/0, and then we are going to go into this column bead right here. Then we're going to pick up an 8/0 seed bead and another column bead and an 8/0 seed bead. Come here, 8/0, just like this. And we're going to go into the opposite side of the bead we're coming out of and pull it through. And just keep pulling and arranging until that column bead comes up and lays next to the previous one. And now we're coming out of this middle column bead here. We're going to go into the 8/0 of the unit we just added. Then we're going to go down into the third column bead here, into the 8/0, and then back up into the middle column bead here. Now once you've done that, pull your thread, make sure everything is nice and tight, and then go into the 8/0 here, just like this. Now we are going to pick up 3 8/0 seed beads onto our needle, and that 8/0 is weird. Let me get a different one. And we're going to go back into the opposite side of the bead that we're exiting from, just like this. Now we're going to sew back through all 4 of these beads. So we're coming into the one we're connecting to, or we're coming out of the one we're connecting to. We're going to go into this side bead here. And then we're going to go into the top bead. And then we're going to go into this side bead. And just to make sure we have a secure unit, we're going to go back into the bead we're connecting to. So we're sewing all the way around the unit. Now we need to work our way over to this side. So we are going to sew back through until we come out of this bead right here. So we're going to go into this one here, and then the top one, and then the middle one. Now this is right angle weave we've just done, this little unit up here. So every unit has 4 beads in it. This one, as you can see, will be sharing 2 beads. So we're coming out of this side bead here. We're going to go down into the 8/0 between the first set of column beads, and we're going to go through it. And now to make this 4 unit, we need to add 2 beads because we've already got 2 on our unit. So we're coming out here, we're going to go down into this middle bead here, adding 2 8/0 seed beads to it, just like this. And then we're going to secure it. So we're coming out of this middle bead, we're going to go up into, or we're going to go through the bead that's between the crystals. And then we're going to go up through the side here. And we're doing this because you can see how loose it is and how it falls apart. We need to make sure that the unit is going to stay in proper order here. So I've gone through this bead and this bead. Now I'm going to go through this center bead again. And then I'm going to go through this 8/0 on the bottom here. Now I'm all the way around, and I am going to pick up a 15/0 seed bead and then a crystal and a 15/0 onto my needle, just like this. I'm coming out of this bottom 8/0 seed bead right here. I'm going to cross into the opposite bead. So the bead directly opposite this one is this top bead here. And I'm going to go in to the opposite side from which I'm exiting this bead. So I'm exiting here. I'm going to go into this top bead on this side. So the inside of the 2 units here. And pull this down. Now to secure my embellishment, I'm going to sew down into the bead next to the one I'm coming out of. So I'm coming out here. I'm going to go down into this one, pull my thread through, Then I'm going to go into the bottom one, the one connected to the column beads, pull this, and then I'm going to go into this side bead here. So I've just sewn around the bottom half of that unit. Now I'm in this center bead here. I'm going to get you even a little closer, and we're going to go into the top bead here, just like this, and we're going to pick up a 15-0, a crystal, and a 15-0. We're coming out of this side of this unit. We're going to, or of this bead, we're going to go into the opposite bead in the unit. So this one right across from it on the opposite side that we're coming out of. So we're coming out of this side. We're going to go towards the inside and go into this bottom bead here and pull this down. Now we're going to sew around this unit just to make sure that our embellishment with our crystal stays in place. So we're coming out of this bead, we go into this bead, we're going to sew all the way around. And actually 3/4 of the way around. So we're coming out of the middle bead now. Now I want to work my way back around this bead so I can start my clasping. So I'm going to go from this middle bead into this unit now on the bottom. This just puts my thread in the right direction for the next move here. Then we're going to go up this side bead, and then we're going to go into this top bead right here. Then we're going to pick up an 11-0 and an 8-0, and we're going to drop this down to our unit, just like this. Then we're going to pick up our clasp, and we're going to go through the loop on the clasp. Then we're going to go back through the 8-0 seed bead and just the 8-0, hold on to it, and pull your thread through and draw the clasp to it, just like this. Now we're going to pick up an 11-0, and we're going to go into the top bead on this unit from the inside out. So I'm going to go in this side here, just like this, and pull my needle out. Now we're going to add some embellishments as we move around, and then we'll go up through the clasping again. So we're going to pick up an 11-0 seed bead. We're coming out of this 8-0 here. I'm going to get you in even closer for just a moment. So we're coming out of this 8-0 here. We're now going to go down into the 8-0 on the side and pop an 11-0 seed bead between those two 8-0s. Then we're going to pick up another 11-0 seed bead. We're going to go from this 8-0 into this 8-0 on the bottom of our right angle weave unit right here, and pull that 11-0 in. Then we're going to pick up another 11-0, and we're going to go into the next 8-0 seed bead. So the other 8-0 that is holding the crystals together. Now I'm just going to rearrange my hands a little bit, and I'm going to pick up another 11-0 seed bead, and I'm going to go into, from this 8-0 into this side 8-0, and pop an 11-0 between them. Pick up another 11-0 and go from this 8-0 to this 8-0 right here. Now that we're coming out of this 8-0, we're going to go up into our clasping. So we're just going to go directly up into this 11-0 here, and it's kind of wobbly. Sorry guys, it just got to get my hands in the right position here. So I'm going to go into the 11-0 and the 8-0. Let me back off so I stay in camera here, and I'm going to pull up through the 11-0 and 8-0 here. So I was coming out of this 8-0 here, and now I'm up through my clasp, and I'm going to go back down into this 8-0 here. And then I will go into the 11-0 and just the 11-0 because the angle of that 8-0 is difficult. So I'm just going to go through the 11-0 and then I will go through this 8-0 here. And if you can get that corner 11-0, you can go through it also. Now we're going to sew all the way around and come back up through our clasping one more time. So we're coming out of this 11-0 here. We're going to go into the 8-0 beneath it. And if you can get the 11-0, go through the 11-0, but I cannot. So I'm just going to go through this 8-0. Then I'm going to go through all these beads on the bottom here. So 11-0, 8-0, 11-0, 8-0, 11-0. That's what I'm traveling through. I'm going to turn my piece and I'm going to go up into this 11-0 or 8-0 and 11-0 on the corner. Okay, we need one more pass of thread through our clasping, so we're going to go into this 8-0, 11-0 and 8-0 and then into the clasp. So you can see I'm just climbing up the clasping here and exiting my loop of my clasp. Then I'm going to go back down into the 8-0 beneath the clasping and just the 8-0 because of the angle here. Straighten everything out. Then I'm going to go into this 11-0 here. Then I'm going to go into the 8-0 here and the 11-0 on the corner. Now we have 3 passes of thread through our clasping, which should be plenty, but we need to put one more little embellishment on the top here. Now this clasping part is the most detailed part. Once we get moving into the next units, it won't be quite as much, but we're going to go ahead and sew all the way around again. So we're coming out of this corner here. We're going to go down into the 8-0 and then we're going to go into all the beads on the bottom again. So if you can get them all, go through them all. If you cannot, exit where you need to. This little 11-0 on the edge is in a funny angle, so I am going through this 11-0, 8-0, 11-0, and then I'll go back into this 8-0 here and the 11-0 on the corner. Sometimes you just have to manipulate your way through there. And then I am going to climb up the side here. So I'm going to go up this 8-0 and the 11-0 on the side of the clasping unit here. Then I'm going to go through this 8-0 right here. I'm going to pull my clasping so it's a little bit straighter. Kind of move it into place the way I want it. And then I'm going to pick up an 11-0 seed bead. And I'm going to travel from the 8-0 I am now coming out of right here into the 8-0 directly across from it right here. And if you can get into that 11-0, slide through the 11-0 on the corner too, just like that, and pull this through. Now, you should have something that looks like this. And we're going to sew down into, we're coming out of the 11-0 in the corner, go into the 8-0 and the 11-0 on the other corner, right here. Now we're going to sew down into the crystal. Or actually, let me back out of that. I think what I would like to do is go into this, well, let's go straight down into the crystal here. There we go. And then I'm going to cut this tail off. And now we need to go into our 8-0 seed bead so that we can begin our next unit. So we're going to go down into this 8-0 and then we're going to make 2 units of right angle weave. So let's pick up 3 8/0 seed beads, and then go into the opposite side of the 8/0 we're coming out of, just like this, and draw down a right angle weave unit like that. And then we're going to sew back through the entire thing. So we're going to go into the side bead, the bottom bead, and the side bead. Make sure you get decent tension after each pass through, and then go into the bead you're attaching to. Now go down into the center bead, the one between where you'll have this unit and this unit. So it's the side bead. You can see we're going into this side bead. Now we're going to make another unit. We already have 2 beads to work with. We're going to share this bead and this bead in this unit. So you're going to pick up 2 beads, and you're going to slide into the 8/0 from the outside in. Then we have to sew up into the middle bead to attach to that bead. Just like that. Now you have 2 units. However, we need to sew through every bead all the way around on this unit to make sure it's nice and secure. Now, I went all the way around, I came through the center bead, and now I'm going into the bottom bead here. I'm going to pick up a 15/0 seed bead, and then I'm going to pick up a crystal, and then I'm going to pick up a 15/0 seed bead. I'm coming out of this bead right here on this side. I'm going to go into the top bead on the opposite side, just like this. Now, to secure this, I'm going to sew through this bead here. So I'm coming out of this 8/0 here. I'm going to go into this one. Now I'm going to go into the bottom one. And then I'm going to go into this center one. And to position myself to make my crystal embellishment on this unit, I'm going to go into this top 8/0 seed bead that is attached between the column beads and pull my thread through. Now I'm going to pick up a 15/0 seed bead, and I'm going to pick up a crystal, a 3x2, and a 15/0 seed bead, and I am going to go into the opposite bead on the opposite side from which I'm exiting. So I'm exiting here. I'm going to go into the opposite bead on the opposite side in a diagonal type of motion and pull this down, just like that. Now we are going to pick up a column bead. Actually, let's sew around that just to secure that embellishment, because they can get loose. So we're coming out of this bottom one. Let's go ahead and sew around it. So we're going to go into the side. Then we're going to go into this top bead here. Well, that was graceful, huh? And then we're going to go down into this middle bead here. And then into the bottom bead. Now, just sewing around the unit 3/4 of the way there, it helps keep those embellishments from getting loose while you're making your next section here. So you're going to pick up a column bead, and then you're going to pick up an 8/0 and a column bead. Just like this. You're going to go into the opposite side of the bead you're coming out of and pull this down. Like this. Now we're going to sew through all 4 of these beads. So we're coming out of this top bead here. We're going to go down into the column bead here and pull. Go into the 8/0 and pull. Go into the column bead. And I'm saying and pull because you want to make sure you have nice tension on this. Then go back into this 8/0. You have to make sure you go all the way around so that there's at least 2 passes of thread here. Then we're going to sew into we're coming out of this 8/0 that is attached to our right angle weave. We're going to go down into the column bead. We're going to go into this 8/0 here, and then we're going to go into this middle crystal. column bead, whatever you want to call it. Then we are now going to attach it to this 8/0 here. So you're going to come out of the crystal, go into the 8/0 on the other unit of right angle weave, and pull it through. Then you're going to pick up a column bead and an 8/0 seed bead. And you're going to go up into the column bead here. And pull this down, just like this. Now we're going to sew back through this entire thing. So we're coming out of this middle column bead, we're going to go into the 8/0 we're attaching to. Then we're going to go down into this column bead here, into the 8/0 on the bottom here, and then up through the column bead. Once we are up here, we're going to go back into that 8/0 we're attaching to. Then we're going to pick up an 11/0 seed bead, and we are coming out of this 8/0 here. We're going to go into the 8/0 on the side. So you're going from bottom to side here, and then we're in the side, we're going to go to the top 8/0. So we're just traveling around these 8/0s, putting an 11/0 between them, pick up another 11/0. We're going to go from this 8/0 to this 8/0, right here. Pull it in. Now we're going to pick up another 11/0 seed bead, and we're going to go down into the 8/0 on the side here. So you're coming out of the one that's attaching here, and you're going down into the side one, and then you're going to pick up another 11/0 seed bead, and you're going to go into the 8/0 on the bottom here. One more 11/0, and we're going to sew into the next 8/0. Just push that other 11/0 out of your way and just go through the 8/0 right there. Then we're coming out of this 8/0 in the center here. We're going to slide down into the crystal, or the very side column bead here. Now we're going to go into this 8/0 seed bead right here. So we have now completed a middle unit and a complete crystal unit. So now we're going to make another middle unit. So these middle units are what I'm calling the ones with the little 3x2 crystals. So we're going to start by picking up 3 8/0 seed beads. Coming out of this 8/0, we're going to go into the opposite side and pull this down. Then we're going to sew back through this entire unit. Now I didn't start with a full 5 feet of thread, so I may have to stop and extend my thread, but we're going to go ahead and get as far as I can get here. So I'm just sewing all the way around and back into the attaching bead right there. Now I'm coming out of this bead right here that's attached to the crystals. I'm going to go up into the side bead here, and now I need to pick up 2 8/0 seed beads to make my next right angle weave unit. So I'm going to pick up these 2 8/0s. I'm going to go into this bead that's between the crystals, pull this all together, and then go back up the center unit, or the center bead, I guess I should say. Then I'm going to sew all the way around again. So from the center, I'm going to the bottom bead, then I'm going to the side bead, and then I'm going to the top bead. I call the top bead the one that's towards the clasping, and the bottom bead the one that's not. And then we're going to go down into this center bead here, and then we are going to go into the bottom bead, and we're now going to put our crystal on the top. So we're going to pick up a 15/0 seed bead and a 3x2 and a 15/0, and we are coming out of this side of this bottom bead. We're going to cross over and go into the opposite bead on the opposite side, just like this, and pull this down. Now we're going to sew through. So we're going to go down into this bottom bead. We're coming out of the 8-0 between the columns. Go into the side bead, go into the bottom bead, and then go into the center bead here. Pull this tight, make sure your embellishment looks good, has nice tension, is going to stay there nicely, and then we're going to go into this 8-0 seed bead here. So we're in the center, we're going to go into the top one of this unit. We are going to pick up a 15-0, a crystal, and a 15-0. We're going to drop this down, and we're going to go into the opposite side of the opposite bead. So we're coming out of this bead, and we're going to go from the inside out on this bead on the bottom, just like that. Now, we're going to sew around just to secure it. So we're going to go into the side bead, top bead, bottom bead, and then we're going to go into one of these bottom beads right here. I am going to extend my Fireline. I will be right back and we will continue from this point. Okay, so we are coming out of this bottom bead right here. We are going to pick up a column bead, an 8-0 seed bead, and a column bead. Just like this. And then we're going to go into the opposite side of the bead we're coming out of and pull this down. And arrange it. Sometimes they want to be a little stubborn, so just arrange them until they lay next to each other like this. And then we're going to go down, we're coming out of this 8-0, we're going to go down into this column bead right here. Then we're going to go into this 8-0 seed bead here. And then we're going to go up into the column bead. And back into our connecting bead so that we are all the way around, and there's 2 passes of thread through that 8-0 there. And now we have to sew around this unit, so we're going to go back down into the column. We're going to go into this 8-0 here. Then we're going to come up into the center column bead. Whenever you are on your second pass through in your middle bead here, you're going to go into the other 8-0 on your other unit. So we're coming up through the middle, we're going over into this 8-0 now. And we're going to pull the thread through, and then we're going to pick up a column bead and an 8-0, and then we're going to go up into the center column bead again. Pull these down, arrange them so they lay nicely, and then go back into this 8-0. So we're coming out of the column now, we go into the 8-0 here. And then I'm just going to turn so I can make an entire pass around this new unit. As you see, what happens if you don't go around them twice, you can't keep them anchored nice to do the rest of your stitch. So this securing, going all the way around it again, is what ensures that everything stays together nicely so that you can continue to work. Now I've gone through that 8-0, I'm going back up through the center bead, and I am now going into this 8-0 here. Make sure my thread didn't just pull anything out of whack there. And now I'm going to pick up an 11-0 seed bead, and I'm going to get just a little closer for a minute. I've picked up my 11-0. I'm coming out of this 8-0 right here that's anchoring the column beads on the bottom here, and I'm going to go into the next 8-0. So from 8-0 to 8-0, pull this down. Now I'm coming out of this 8-0, I pick up an 11-0, and I go into the 8-0 on the top here. Then I'm going to pick up an 8-0, and go into the next 8-0 right next to the one I'm coming out of. Then I'm going to pick up another 11-0 and go down into this one here. So I'm just putting an 11-0 between each and every 8-0. So now I'm picking up an 11-0 and I'm going through just this 8-0 here. Then I'm going to pick up another 11-0, and as I pass through, I just want to pass through this 8-0 seed bead and ignore the 11-0 in the corner. Just go through the 8-0 and pop this 11-0 in the center. Okay, he twisted, so let me untwist him. There, I think. Let me untwist him again. Let's see, are you twisted? You are twisted. Sometimes your thread will twist and you just have to play with it until it isn't twisted anymore. Okay, it's not twisted, so I should be able to pull him in there. There, yeah, he's finally sunk down in there. Sometimes you just have to play with it. And then we are coming out of this 8-0 now. We skipped this 11-0, we go down into our column bead. And then we will begin making our right angle weave sections again. So this is completely repetitive from this point. So go ahead and back up the video and watch several times how to do these units, and just until you get the gist of it, and then continue making your units until you have 11 column units. So let me get you in closer and you can see what I'm talking about. I'm just counting the columns, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on to 11. Now this is going to make just a little over a 7-inch bracelet. If you want a bigger bracelet than that, you're going to go ahead and do a whole nother set. So we're going to put another right angle weave unit right here, but you will have to go ahead and do another set of columns and then another right angle weave unit. If you want it shorter, then you can end wherever you want on your columns. Just make sure that you can make your next right angle weave unit. So, or that you end on a right angle weave unit, which is what I'm going to show you here. So I have made my last set of columns and I am prepared to make my next set of right angle weave. Because as we sew around, there's options and your thread path can be a little bit different than mine. We're going to do this a specific way. So it doesn't matter what 8-0 seed bead you're coming out of, this one or this one, we're going to go ahead and make our units. And then we're just going to make sure we sew up through the middle so we can go a particular direction. So I'm coming out of my right side here. I am picking up 3 8-0 seed beads and I'm going to go into the one I'm connecting to on the opposite side from which my thread is coming out, and pull my beads down, and then I'm going to sew back around them. So I'm going to position it this way so I can actually sew here. Let me get you in closer. So I'm just sewing around this entire unit here. Now I'm back into my connecting bead. I'm going to straighten out this little guy here. Okay, come on, straighten out. And I'm going to go up through him. So regardless of what side you're on, just go ahead and make your right angle weave unit. And then sew up through the center, or the side bead, and then go into the bead on the next unit. But only pick up 2, not 3. So we're coming through the center, pick up 2 8-0s, and then go into the connecting bead on the other column, and then go up through the center again, and sew around one more time. Now we're just going to come up through this center bead. Now regardless if you ended up on the right or the left side, coming up through the center bead will allow you to choose either side to go into. So now I've got my clasping towards me. This is going to be the left hand side that I'm going to work from. We're going to do our embellishments a little bit differently simply because we need to be able to put our clasping on a specific way. So I'm going to go into the left hand unit top bead here. Then I'm going to go into the side bead here. I'm going to pick up a 15-0 and a crystal 3x2 and a 15-0. Now I'm coming out of this bead down this way. I want to go into the opposite bead, which is the center bead, the opposite direction. So I'm going to go down into that bead like this and pull my embellishment down. And then I am going to sew all the way around. So I'm coming down into this bottom one until I get into the top, right here. Now, because my thread is in the proper position, I am going to put on my clasping. So I'm going to pick up an 11-0 and then an 8-0. Drop it down, and then I'm going to pick up my clasp, and I'm actually going to add 2 8-0s on this side just because my toggle is kind of a large toggle and I want to make sure this end will slide simply through the other end. So I'm going to pick up 2 8-0 seed beads. So I've got 11-0, 2 8-0s, and then I am going to go through my clasping loop. Then I'm going to go back down into these 2 8-0s. If you have one, if you've chosen to use just one, just go down through that one. But because I have 2, I'm going through 2. And then I'm going to pick up an 11-0 seed bead. And I am going to go in from the inside out into the top bead in the other right angle weave unit. Just like this. And try to pull it kind of straight here. And get it arranged as best I can, like this. And then I am going to sew down into this side bead here. And try to keep everything straight here. And then I'm going to pick up a 15-0 and one of my crystals and a 15-0. I'm coming out of this bead on this side. I'm going to cross over into the middle bead right here on the opposite side from which I'm coming out of this bead. So I'm going down into it and I'm going to pull my embellishment down. Now this embellishment is going to lay a little bit differently than these others, but because of the thread path issues, this is important to do it this way, just so you don't get confused. And then I'm coming out of the center bead. I'm going to go ahead and go through the bottom bead here and this side bead here. Now I'm going to go ahead and sew up through this 8-0. I'm going to go up my clasping again, so I'll go up this 11-0. And I will go into the 2 8-0s. And then down into the 2 8-0s and the 11-0 and the attaching 8-0 on the other side, just like this. Now I'm coming out of the 8-0 right here. I'm going to pick up an 11-0 seed bead, go down into the 8-0 next to it. Then I'm going to pick up another 11-0 and go down into the 8-0 on the bottom of the unit here. Then I'm going to go pick up an 11-0 and go into the very next 8-0 right there. And I'm going to get you just a little closer so you can see. So this is right in the center. Pull that 11-0 down. Then I'm going to pick up an 11-0 and I'm going to go into this side bead here, pick up an 11-0 and go into this 8-0, and I'm just going to exit that 8-0 so I can go up through my clasping one more time. So I'm going to go up through the 11-0, the 2 8-0s, and then through my clasp if I can, just like that. Then down through the 2 8-0s, the 11-0 on this side, and the 8-0 underneath it, and pull this through. Now I'm just going to pull it so it's all nice and neat, and then I'm going to sew all the way around again and put my little 11-0 in the center. So I'm in this 8-0 here. I'm going to go into the 11-0, 8-0, and 11-0 on the side of the unit here. Then I'm going to pass through all of these beads on the bottom. So I'm already through the 11-0 on the corner. I'm going to go through the 8-0, 11-0, 8-0, 11-0. Just like that. Now I'm going to go up through this 8-0 and 11-0 on this side. So I'm just going to go through the 8-0 because the 11-0 is at a funny angle. And then I'm going to go through the 11-0 and 8-0 on the top. I'm going to make sure my clasping is in the correct position. I'm going to pick up an 11-0 and I'm going to slide into the 8-0 on this side. And pop that right down in the middle, just like that. Now your clasping is complete. You're going to turn your bracelet over, go down into the 11-0 and the 8-0 on this side. That other 11-0 is at a funny angle. So I am just going to go between this 8-0 and this 11-0 with my needle. See if I can get back there. No, so I'm going to go down into this 11-0. And I'm going to go about this a little differently. See if I can pass into this 8-0, 11-0, and 8-0 here, and I'm going to exit this 8-0. So I can get down into one of these column beads. It's going to be easier to tie a knot here. So I'm going to go between this 11-0 and this column bead and grab the little piece of thread that connects the two right between there. So I'm going right underneath this little thread bridge that connects these two. I'm going to make a loop, go through the loop, and pull my thread down so that I have a nice little knot there. Then I'll go through these beads here. So I'm going to go through the 11-0 and 8-0. Because of the curve of that other 11-0, I'll do it separately. And then I'm going to go down into this column bead. And again, I'm going to tie another knot between the 11-0 and the 8. I'm going to grab, so there isn't a thread bridge between this 11-0 and column bead, so I'm going to grab it between the 8-0 and the column bead. Right here. Oh, come on. And make a little loop, pull this through, and down on my thread bridge. So you can tie it off any way you like. Just make sure you don't cross your threads over the top of any beads or anything like that. But I have it tied off pretty sufficiently, I think. So now I am going to cut a little tag of my thread here and leave a little bit out. And then I'm just going to melt that down into the beads, just like that. Now, I have a bracelet. Let me show you what it looks like. It's really pretty. Turned out really nice. I'm going to see how well it fits me now. Let me put it on real quick and then I'll be back in camera. Yeah, with those two 8-0s, it passes through this pretty substantial, clasping pretty well. And this is what it looks like. I'm going to back off so you can see it a little bit from a distance and see the clasping. It's all very, very pretty. This is an impressive little bracelet. I like it. You can do this in all kinds of color schemes. I just hadn't used hematite in a long time, or my steel blue and powder blue type beads, so I decided that that would be a nice color scheming, and I think it turned out pretty nice. So that's how you make this bracelet. Now this is, I realize, a little bit more advanced. I have had requests to do just a little bit more advanced stuff, so I will keep doing the very simple, and I will do a little bit more advanced also for those who have been around for a while. So if you are not familiar with right angle weave, before you do this particular tutorial, just familiarize yourself with right angle weave, and that will make this a lot easier. Not that it's difficult. It is a fairly simple design. It just has a lot more steps, and the thread path is important. So when you understand the thread path of a right angle weave, it will help you tremendously. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.